From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
After the tragic shooting in Orlando yesterday, everyone is still trying to put the pieces together, and support for Orlando continues to grow.
We bring you team coverage today as authorities are trying to figure out what happened early Sunday morning. Dozens of vigils were held last night across the U.S., a show of support and a way to mourn the lives lost in the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history.
Here's what we now know. The mass shooting took place early Sunday morning in Orlando, Florida at the gay nightclub Pulse. Right now, the number of deaths remains at 50, including the suspected gunman and over 50 people injured as a result of the shooting. The suspected gunman is being identified by police as 29-year-old Omar Mateen. The FBI says he's been on their radar since 2013.
With attacks like these, the big question is always, how do we prevent this and what do we do here at home?
Terrorism and war experts here in the Valley state that they will work on a daily basis to study the history of these attacks.
I spoke with Daniel Rothenberg, terrorism expert and co-director of the Center on the Future of War at ASU, who has worked in this realm for 2 decades. He tells us there's a common thread running through most of the domestic attacks in the U.S. since 9/11. They have been lone wolf attacks, a single terrorist. He says these are the hardest attacks to prevent.
They don't necessarily reveal the kinds of signals that might indicate that they are outliers in society and particularly dangerous. They're often, relatively well educated.
Reaction to the Orlando attacks came from across the country. In Arizona, former Representative Gabby Giffords and her husband, Mark Kelly, released a statement to those who claim nothing can be done to make the country safer from gun violence, saying, quote, "It's not true. It was a sad and dark day for this country we all love." On Sunday, Orlando's shooting came just days after Giffords and Kelly went to D.C. demanding stricter gun laws, some specifically to stop gun suicide of veterans.
Specifically, it would be great to have federal legislation with regards to background checks to close those loopholes in our gun laws that let dangerous people get guns. We tried to do that in 2013, failed by about 4 votes. That bill, something like that, will come up again.
Giffords was the target of a 2011 shooting in Tucson that left 6 dead and 12 others wounded.
Around 1,000 people gathered together at the LGBT Pride Center in Phoenix last night in response to the shooting in Orlando. Cronkite News reporter Eddie Keller takes us inside this moment of solidarity.
The tragedy in Orlando has rocked the entire nation and has even hit home for many here in Phoenix. The city, in cooperation with religious leaders, held a vigil that sought to unify the community. Phoenix loves Orlando. That was the message proclaimed loud and clear at the vigil in downtown Phoenix.
We will not be afraid. We come tonight to declare that you are my brother, you are my sister, you are somebody.
Catholics, Jews, Protestants, Muslims, and more stood side by side in solidarity after the tragic shooting in Orlando.
Truth to be self-evident that all of God's children are created in the image of God.
It was beautiful. While they were up there speaking, it's like you could just feel the power and the love that they have for everyone. It's just amazing. It really is.
Reverend James Pennington of Phoenix First Congregational United Church of Christ was proud to see a unified community.
We gathered faith leaders together, especially we felt it was important to have the Muslim community present because this was I think one more incident of potentially Islamophobia.
But this was just the beginning. He says that the solidarity needs to continue.
When there are opportunities in the community, and even when there aren't opportunities, that we gather so that we don't wait until kind of tragedies like Orlando, that we actually take opportunities to be together, to gather together, and to build momentum and power and strength and solidarity.
While they don't have any specific plans to build on this moment of unity, he says people of different faiths have at least opened a dialogue so they can find more common ground. Reverend Pennington says that he and his colleagues at the Arizona Faith Network will be striving to keep that dialogue moving forward and bring even more unity to the city of Phoenix. Live at the digital desk, Eddie Keller, Cronkite News.
The Orlando shooting happened during one of the most holy months in Islam. Phoenix area Muslims are condemning the tragedy and reject any violence committed in the name of their religion. The Islamic Community Center of Phoenix opened its doors and invited me to learn about its teachings. Muslims around the world have begun to observe one of their most holy times through prayer and fast.
The holy month of Ramadan happens once a year. It's the month in which the Holy Quran was first revealed.
The month emphasizes closeness to God, sacrifice, and giving back to the community, all of which are a part of the 5 pillars of Islam.
If somebody have bad habits, the point is to shed those habits during the month of Ramadan to be a start, a new beginning for you for the rest of the year.
Phoenix Muslims say no drinks or food from sunrise to sunset is hard at first, but it gets easier.
You can definitely sense the blessing of the month. Knowing that billions of people are fasting alongside with you is what's makes it so much easier.
Muslims say fasting gives them time to reflect on their actions and nourish their souls.
The fast teaches you how to be patient. So you're not supposed to engage in dispute, or you shouldn't be engaged in argument.
Every Muslim I spoke to condemned the shooting in Orlando. They said it was against the teachings of Islam and the spirit of Ramadan.
In the Quran, it explicitly says is if you kill one person, it's as if you killed the entire mankind. And so the fact that this happened in the midst of such a holy month should tell you something about that individual.
Shami says the Islamic Center of Phoenix has an open door policy, and he invites the public to learn about a religion he says is largely misconstrued.
Come and look people in the eye and talk to them, and you will see that they're human beings like you.
Sharuru hopes people learn about the core of her religion.
It really does mean peace, and it brings peace to me, and I hope that one day it'll bring some peace to the community as well.
The Islamic month of Ramadan began last week and continues through July 5th.
In light of a recent Orlando mass shooting, how to keep our loved ones safe is of more concern than ever. Cronkite News reporter Alexis Solari spoke with a local trauma surgeon who knows firsthand what it's like to treat patients from a mass shooting.
That's right, Katie. Dr. Sidney Vale has been a trauma surgeon for more than 20 years. He's seen some of the worst cases of trauma patients. He even treated some patients from the Virginia Tech shooting back in 2007.
People can help save lives.
Dr. Sidney Vale has been saving lives for decades as a trauma surgeon. He's been working at Maricopa County Medical Center since 2008. But even without a medical background, he says everyone can help save lives with the right training.
People should carry it on themselves. I carry one on my person 365 days a year.
This is an ankle medical holster that holds a tourniquet, gloves, and combat gauze that anyone with 10 or 15 minutes of training can use to administer emergency first aid.
As you carry a cell phone, maybe it's time to start carrying a little bit more.
Vale says public places should have trauma kits readily available for people to access.
They did not have this in Boston. They did not have this at Virginia Tech. Having this available will help save lives.
When he was watching the coverage of the Orlando shooting, he had flashbacks of the many patients he treated from the Virginia Tech massacre. But if it ever happens in Phoenix, he says first responders are ready.
Phoenix has a lot of level 1 trauma centers. So God forbid something huge does happen, and I'm talking more than 5 or 8 patients. We have enough resources here that we should be able to handle a huge mass casualty.
Back in 2011, Dr. Vale says Maricopa County Medical Center participated in an event with the National Guard to test how well they could handle a large influx of patients.
We had 180 patients float through this hospital over several hours. Were we perfect? Absolutely not. Were we good? Yes, we were, and we made ourselves even better because of it.
Vale says he and his staff are ready to go 24/7.
By being a level 1 trauma center, we're committed to the highest level of care for as many people as walk through those doors, get carried through those doors, or roll through those doors.
In the near future, Dr. Vale says Maricopa Medical Center will begin organizing educational classes for the public about how to use the tools in a trauma kit. You can head over to mihs.org for more information. In the Broadcast Center, Alexis Solari, Cronkite News.
Boxing legend Muhammad Ali spent the final 10 years of his life in the Valley and was able to make an impact on the community decades after leaving the ring. And as Cronkite News reporter Crandall Brantley tells us, when it was time to say goodbye to the great one, some Arizonans didn't hesitate to travel to Kentucky.
Ali, 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 Ali. Even after his death, fans still chant his name.
The Muhammad Ali processional and public memorial service was a celebration of a man who impacted the lives of people across the globe and closer to home.
I'm glad he did represent some of Arizona. I did live there for a few years, so he did a lot for the community out there.
The masses bet on him while he was still in the mud.
While the funeral brought out thousands from across the world, the procession in his hometown of Louisville, Kentucky brought people from around the country who remember his impact everywhere he went.
Well, absolutely. They used to have fight night here too as well, so it was really familiar when I heard about it in Arizona as well. So I was a really huge fan.
The Muhammad Ali Center here in his hometown was built as a tribute to the boxing legend. Ali will be remembered in Phoenix as well for raising awareness for Parkinson's disease by collaborating with chairman and founder of Celebrity Fight Night, Jimmy Walker.
The Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center Barrows is one of the largest, most respected in the country, and I've already had people coming up to me, past entertainers, past honorees, saying, hey, we want to help, we want to get this thing going again. And
Five-time heavyweight boxing champ Evander Holyfield is a former recipient of the Celebrity Fight Night Award. Holyfield said his favorite memory of Ali was the time he had the courage to refuse the draft.
He stood up and said that, he wasn't going to service a person taking a stand for something that works. And I think it changed the whole world.
Taking a stance and raising money for Parkinson's disease are all major factors in Ali's legacy. But to his fans across the world,
He's the greatest of all time, I know.
He's the greatest of all time.
For Cronkite News, I'm Crandall Brantley.
Chinese immigrants who come to Arizona sometimes miss the flavor of home. Cronkite News reporter Zhao Weijia brings you to a Chinese garden to show how Chinese Americans connect to home.
When you are living in a totally new country and you really miss your home, what will you do? For me, I usually cook Chinese food, but for some Chinese Americans, they don't just cook, they grow their own vegetables.
This is not a farm, it's the backyard of Jing Lu, a Chinese American who has grown her own vegetables for 8 years.
I don't buy any vegetables from the store. Right now I have probably over 50 or 60 different varieties.
Lu says her own vegetables taste better and they are healthy.
Like tomato, and if you buy from store, and they taste like rubber. But if you grow your own, doesn't look great, but they taste like they have a more flavor. I lose almost 20 to 30 pounds. I didn't do any diet, just eat healthier.
Those are not the usual vegetables that you can buy in a store. Jing Lu says most of them are Chinese vegetables and fruits.
It's a jujube. It's called the Chinese dates. I love the dates since I was a baby. I miss my home.
Jing Lu is not alone. A lot of Chinese Americans grow their vegetables since they moved to the U.S.
This is Chinese vegetable, baby bok choy. Lots of American Chinese people told me growing their own Chinese food in their yards not only give them a healthy life, but also let them remember their hometown, China.
It's a taste of childhood.
I feel like my childhood's coming back. So the taste just like my mom's flavor, my grandma's flavor.
Also a taste of home.
It's a feeling of home. I feel like I've come back home.
Lu created a group to share experiences about growing vegetables. And the group now has more than 400 members. She says it's a good way to build strong relationships in the Chinese American community and make friends.
Since I started growing vegetable, I made a lot of friends. We share a lot seed together, we're talking, and you feel happy. So a lot of happiness, you can use money to buy for it.
Jing Lu also hosts some Chinese food parties in her garden every month. Many members in the Chinese vegetable group will come and cook their home food. They like the food, but most importantly, they enjoy the feeling of community. Jia Huijia, Cronkite News.
Today marks the 4th anniversary of DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program that lets dreamers apply for a 2-year stay here in the U.S. without fear of being deported. But some House Democrats were in no mood to celebrate the anniversary today. Cronkite News reporter Wafa Shahid has the story from our Washington bureau.
Angry members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus accused House Republicans of compromising national security with a proposed amendment to the defense spending bill that would effectively ban Dreamers from serving in the military.
Let me tell you what matters. What matters out there is not your status. What matters is your heart.
Congressman Ruben Gallego and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus blamed the DACA service ban on the influence of likely Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump.
Soon on the House floor, we're going to see yet again a clear example of how House Republicans are the party of Trump when they offer divisive amendments that attack Dreamers.
They come here in the spirit of Donald Trump.
On the 4th year anniversary of DACA, Trump's friends in the House are attacking Dreamers who not only want to serve our country, but want to serve it in uniform.
Caucus members accused House Republicans of attacking the immigrant community yet again, but this time on a particularly troubling date. Gallego said supporters of the proposed amendment were putting partisan politics ahead of the national good.
We should not let anti-immigrant partisan posturing stand in the way of our military recruitment goals or our national security.
The amendment to ban Dreamers from military service was sponsored by another Arizona congressman, Republican Paul Gosar, but he could not be reached for comment on the opposition to his plan. Live in Washington, I'm Wafa Shahid, Cronkite News.
Researchers at University of Arizona and University of Luxembourg have developed a way to fit your entire gut on a chip. Cronkite News reporter Eddie Keller visited U of A's Center for Applied Nano Bioscience and Medicine to see it in action.
That's right, Cooper. All the information about a person's gut can fit onto a chip about half the size of this iPhone. It's called Humix, and the researchers who developed it say it could set a new standard when it comes to the testing and our knowledge of human physiology.
What we're doing is taking cells that you would normally have in your stomach, in your gastrointestinal tract. We can put them in here. We can see how they interact with each other.
Specifically, microbes, or organisms and bacteria that are found in your GI tract.
So right now there is no good model to really study the fundamental, biology and communication between the gut microbiome and for example, the intestine or the colon.
But Dr. Zenhausen says the technology they've developed, called Humix, is the solution.
We can look at the effect of drugs. We can look at the effect of nutrition. If you eat too much chocolate, maybe that's, have an impact.
Humix allows researchers to map out, isolate, and study the interaction between microbes and human tissue in the GI tract. They say this could lead to treatments specifically tailored to each person.
Because your body is completely different to my body, so how the probiotics that might improve your digestion might not be quite so good for me.
But it isn't just about gastrointestinal health and research. They say Humix might even help address mental health and disease due to the connection between the gut and the brain.
In the gut, you have a lot of neuron and nerve that connect with your brain. So maybe indeed that communication between those different cells may generate neurotoxin that maybe in fact will influence your brain.
There isn't anything proven yet, but the researchers are hopeful that it could lead to new insights into some of the most complex brain diseases.
Like Parkinson, Alzheimer's disease, but also dementia and other type of disease, but also in terms of depression and other disease.
While Dr. Zenhausen and his team are still working on some of the mechanisms involved, they believe that Humix could revolutionize our understanding of human biology. Live at the control room, Eddie Keller, Cronkite News.
Fossil Creek is only one of 2 streams in the state that are part of the Wild and Scenic River system, but parking permits are now a requirement to enter the area. Cronkite reporter Crandall Brantley visited the area to learn more about the new regulations.
A decrease in visitors and less pollution at Fossil Creek were 2 things the Forest Service had in mind when they began to regulate parking permits at Fossil Creek. Forest Ranger Dexter Allen says the goal is to improve the experience for visitors.
Basically doing what we wanted. The capacity is limited and there's less people in the area.
The parking permits cost $6 per vehicle on the Forest Service website. Allen says Fossil Creek has 148 assigned parking spots scattered across 9 parking lots.
On the weekends, all of those parking areas have been 100% booked.
Up to 6 permits are allowed per visitor during the busy months, and a copy of the permit is required to enter.
In the past, before we started this reservation system, we had a lot of people show up and we were full, so we'd turn people away. That's why we designed the reservation system, so they're guaranteed to get in with their reservation.
On the weekends, when it's usually booked, rangers stop cars to check permits near the entrance of the trail. But during the week, drivers often end up driving 14 miles on a dirt road before they reach a parking lot where they are told to leave.
We've had 5 vehicles show up without a reservation. Unfortunately, they get turned away.
The best option is to print your permit at home before you hit the road. For Cronkite News, I'm Crandall Brantley.
From May through the beginning of October, visitors are prohibited from camping in the area. Fossil Creek is open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. during the day.
Whether Phoenix, the 6th largest city in the United States, is prepared to handle a mass casualty incident is on the minds of Arizonans. Cronkite News reporter Alexis Solari spoke with the Phoenix Fire Department about how they are looking to equip firefighters with new tools to respond to an incident like the Orlando shooting massacre.
I spoke to a captain with the Phoenix Fire Department how firefighters are gearing up to handle a situation involving mass casualties.
We've had 3 big steps that we've really taken to help protect the public in events of mass casualty.
Suburbi says fire trucks contain 4 essential kits to respond to emergency situations, one of which includes a trauma kit. But soon the Phoenix Fire Department will begin stocking their battalion trucks with new trauma kit gear if they ever have to handle mass casualty incidents.
They're actually not even currently staffed on the vehicles, so they're being put together really as we speak.
Some of that gear includes a stretch tourniquet, ghost stretcher.
We can go in with a number of these and quickly wrap them underneath patients. One person, depending on the size, one firefighter, depending on the size of the patient, would be able to wrap somebody in these, quickly drag them out of the scene and drag them into a safe area.
Combat gauze.
So these are the ones that we can use to pack a wound, pack an injury.
Compressed gauze, a standard combat tourniquet, and needle decompression.
A lot of those mass casualty kits, the design really comes from stuff the military was using, lessons that have been learned in Iraq and Afghanistan in terms of how to quickly dress and heal battle wounds prior to being able to get somebody to surgery.
In addition to gear, Suburbi says Phoenix Fire has been heavily working with law enforcement the past 2.5 years to learn how to better prepare for a mass casualty scenario.
We've had firefighters that are on that violent incident subcommittee, and they've gone to the different stations and trained us on how to use the equipment prior to it even coming out. So once we have all the kits put together and everything's done, the day they're on the truck, we don't have to go through and train everybody. The training's actually already been done.
While Suburbi hopes something like the Orlando shooting massacre never happens, he believes Phoenix Fire is prepared to handle a situation like this.
We're very confident in our training, very confident in our abilities and the structure that we have in place, that if something like that were to happen here, that we know that we would be able to respond and handle it.
Now, Suburbi says this new trauma gear won't be added to all fire trucks because of how expensive it is, but he does say Phoenix firefighters are prepared to handle a situation involving mass casualties. Live in Phoenix, Alexis Solari, Cronkite News.
Those high temps can make it dangerous for anyone out in the elements. Cronkite News reporter Ellie Keller brings us some info on how to stay safe in this heat.
Crandall, it is a scorcher outside today, and it's only going to get worse and even more dangerous. I talked to paramedics who help treat people in extreme heat, and they lay out what happens hour by hour. Morning.
Really, you're going to start seeing higher temperatures before even 10 a.m.
Evening.
You can see even overnight temperatures above 90 degrees.
It is hot all day. While Arizona is no stranger to excessively hot summers, don't assume that it isn't dangerous.
I had a gentleman from out of town whose son almost died because they lost track of where their car was parked just downtown trying to find their parking garage.
Pretty much anybody can be vulnerable during extreme heat.
What most people don't realize is that it can only take 15 to 20 minutes to reach the most dangerous levels of overheating, and then you'll end up in a situation like this.
Dizziness, lightheadedness, lack of sweating, excessive thirst.
Real important is don't go anywhere outside your house without water.
Word remembers one instance where he had to rush to save a man who was visually impaired and got off track.
It was on a very warm day. We're talking about 10-15 minutes, and he got a little disoriented before he could find a restaurant that he normally went to. At this point, he already had an altered level of consciousness, and his core temperature had risen to 105.
But even if you're indoors, make sure you are staying hydrated and cool.
We do have about 40% of our deaths are in people who are indoors at the time of death.
Officials say it's important to be aware of the symptoms of heat-related illnesses, including headaches, muscle cramps, and weakness. You should also make sure to drink more water and wear light-colored clothing. Also, check on your elderly neighbors to make sure they're okay in the heat. In the broadcast center, Eddie Keller, Cronkite News.
Politics is sometimes seen as a game, but isn't always to be a serious one. Cronkite News reporter Megan Finnerty and now our Washington Bureau reports on the 8th annual Congressional softball game, pitting women in Congress against ladies of the press.
Under the gray sky and stadium lights, women grabbed their gloves, shagged balls, and stepped up to the plate. But this wasn't a regular summer rec league. This one came with Secret Service agents and stands filled with politicians.
Well, tonight is the Congressional Women's Softball Game. Every year we have a bipartisan, bicameral team of women of Congress and the Senate who beat the press.
Congresswoman Kyrsten Sinema from Phoenix was looking for a three-peat win. Even though the average age of the members team was 50, these women could play ball.
I play center field, but really what I do is run. That's what I'm good at.
Official politics wasn't far off the diamond. Congresswoman Martha McSally from Tucson wore the number A10, the number of the plane she successfully has been fighting to keep in the budget.
So the number I wore, can I show it? Is the A10, which is the airplane I flew and commanded in combat, the A10 Warthog. It's the best close air support airplane out there, and I've been fighting to make sure that we keep it flying to protect our troops.
McSally played well for a rookie with 3 base hits as the members led through most of the game. Bad News Babes rallied in the bottom of the 6th, ultimately winning 8-4. On the pitcher's mounds, the Bad News Babes celebrated the win. McSally wasn't happy over the loss, but was proud to play to benefit the Young Survival Coalition.
Obviously disappointed, you know, we always want to win, but it was really for a great cause, good camaraderie, and we always get next year.
The game raised a record of $215,000 for the coalition. In Washington, I'm Megan Finnerty, Cronkite News.